Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And that brings us to a title which has been designated by Criterion at spy number 1195. And it comes to the Criterion Collection this year, 2023, courtesy of a 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition, which is what I have here. And this is for a film described as being from the year 2001. And the name of the filmmaker is Alejandro Amenábar. And the name of the work is The Others. Very effective film, a very effective work, which is from the filmmaker Alejandro Amenábar. This is written and directed by Alejandro Amenábar, and also music by Alejandro Amenábar. Really quite a talented Renaissance artist to the max, and it is so effective for many reasons. I think in pertinent part due to the great contribution of the cast, included in which are great performers like Christopher Eccleston and Eric Sykes and Finola Flanagan and James Bentley and Alekina Mann, Elaine Cassidy, Renee Asherton, and also starring the great Nicole Kidman in the central character of Grace. What a performance this is. In this film, again described as being from the year 2001, it is the work which is The Others. The Others comes to the Criterion Collection courtesy of this wonderful 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition, 2 discs, one being the 4K UHD disc, which is in fact what I have in the player at the moment, and then the other being the Blu-ray disc, which we will talk about in later parts of this video when we speak about, say, the supplements, etc. But before we get to that, my dear friends, let us first speak to the plot or story structure of this work, The Others. So if we were to try to focus on the plot or story structure of this work, The Others, I think we would focus on this family that is in this very vast house, this type of mansion house, a very Gothic looking decor with a vastness of grounds that require groundskeeping. And the house is occupied by the sort of matriarch of the house, who is Grace, as portrayed by Nicole Kidman, and her 2 children. These are the characters portrayed by Alekina Mann and James Bentley, so Anne and Nicholas. And they are undergoing a certain number of things. First of all, there is a strong devotion between and among the parent and the children. There's also an understanding that the father is away due to the war. This is a wartime, or a mid-1940s, so it is wartime, or perhaps the tail end of the war. And so the father is not present, but we do have mother and children present. And while they are there waiting, and while they're living in this house, essentially the 3 of them alone, due to other circumstances involving the servants and the help, which we'll get to that in a moment, we find a number of things almost immediately. There's a sense of isolation. They are indeed their own worlds in and to themselves. And this is because of a number of things. First of all, we understand that the children seem to have a very strong reaction towards light. Kind of the photogenic effects of light on their bodies has a very detrimental effect. And so what that means, as part of their try to combat this type of ailment, this physical ailment, the mother, Grace, does her best to be sure that they are not exposed to any light, which means that they are in rooms that are covered, with the windows being covered so that no light from the outside can come in. And so it creates already a very darkened and quite foreboding ambiance inside, which is further augmented by the fact that they are indeed, the three of them, essentially isolated in this grand mansion of a house complete with fog and the nighttime skies and the deepened, darkened hallways and the rooms that accompany this incredible place. And it's the three of them. And then there's also this strong bond from Grace and towards her two children in terms kind of education that has a very strong aspect in religion. And there's, of course, discussion here, and it's also discussed in the supplements too, about aspects of Catholicism and religion, how it is part of the outlook, the perspective of Grace and her children, in particular Grace, and how this does inform how she approaches a sense of her relationship and her sense of responsibility as a mother and as a parent towards her children. There are also aspects of a sense of loss and foreboding and guilt, which have to do with issues or perhaps some kind of mystery or activity surrounding Charles, who is another character that is very key and integral to the proceedings quite early on. But also quite early on, we also have the introduction of new servants or new help that are being introduced to the family and that are being introduced to us as well and to the children. These are the characters portrayed by Elaine Cassidy and Finola Flanagan and Eric Sykes, and Mrs. Mills and Mr. Tuttle and Lydia. And Mrs. Mills, in particular, she is very much brings a sense of, say, organization and a type of confidence and companionship that I think is very much desired and needed by Grace and company. But slowly but surely, maybe perhaps in parallel to the introduction of these new servant help to the grounds and to the lives of these individuals, slowly but surely, or perhaps it was already there but it was imperceptible, things begin to be noticed, certain activity that is unexplained or mysterious that might be suggestive of maybe they are not alone in this house. Maybe there are some specters or ghosts or hauntings associated with this house. And what does it have to do with their children, and what does it have to do with Nicholas and Anne's, say, relationship between themselves, sibling relationship, and also what does it have to do with things that they perhaps might be seeing that their mother or us, the viewers, might not yet be seeing, etc. So what kind of information is there? Who, if anyone, might be elsewhere in the house? And what does it have to do with the fact that, yes, these things might seemingly coincidentally be occurring as the servants are introduced into this world? What does it have to do with something to do with maybe the pasts of these children, the past lives of the past life and of our characters here, like Grace, etc.? And what does it have to do with the war and loss and tragedy? And what does it have to do also with the sense of foreboding and nighttime shadows and the wildlife and the fog and the nature that seems to be all enveloping, all encompassing, and not to mention, of course, the house? What are the secrets that are embedded within this house that is very isolated from the rest of the world? And what are the implications when those secrets come to the fore, and perhaps those mysteries, when they become unlocked or shattered, threaten the very balance and the very life stakes of our main characters as we have come to meet them and know them throughout the course of the film? This is a very, very compelling work indeed, and it is quite scary in a lot of places. There are moments that really have that jump scare effect, but it's done with such great timing, and it's done with great delivery, and there is enough information provided, but also just enough to be withheld to give us the power, the ability to imagine as well, along that really augments the thrill ride aspect of this film, the others. But that's not all, because we have here at its heart a real humane drama. I mean, there are aspects of why Grace, as in this role as a as the main character of this film, also as a mother to her children, why it is that she feels this compassionate and perhaps protective, or maybe even overprotective, towards her children. I mean, there are some really heartfelt and quite understandable motivations behind what it is she's doing, even though perhaps the manifestations of her motivations might seem at some points to be not just overreach, but quite exaggerated overreaction, which might in turn have their own set of ripple effect implications as the plot continues. But in fact, we do get to understand what her motivations are vis-a-vis her children, vis-a-vis Charles, vis-a-vis the new servant help, and vis-a-vis these new unknown disturbances that seem to be occurring. And it is from her perspective for the most part, but it is held together with such, I think, grace and great sense of stability in the wonderful performance by Nicole Kidman, which also has opportunities for emotional rupture and outburst and complete and utter shock. But we are always there with her for this emotional thrill ride, and she anchors it with such a sense of dignity and nobility, which I think is so in keeping with the grace and poetry of this film, The Others. And I should point out to the wonderful performances by James Bentley and Alekina Mann, who play the children, because what can be said to be the heart and soul, or one of the hearts and souls of this film, is the relationship, the familial relationship. And we see this, for instance, in, say, the relationships between characters as portrayed by, say, Christopher Eccleston and Nicole Kidman. We also see it in terms of Nicole Kidman character's relationship with her children. And indeed, one of the things that we can say about this film, The Others, is it is about this idea of reckoning with responsibility, type of reckoning with maybe tragedy or trauma, and how that has maybe undeniable yet perhaps unintended consequences for everyone concerned. And I'm talking about the family unit, which is at the very heart of this film, The Others, and how the children react either directly or indirectly, and how that has an effect on the relationship, and whether there is ultimately, at the end of the day, room or ability to repair any damage to those very strong and important bonds between parents and children. Is there any room to repair the damage, or is the damage so deep that it cannot be undone? And it's so that type of family drama, it's that type of human drama and emotional stakes that are also at the heart of this film, The Others. And when the plot, which is very integral to this human drama, when the plot unfurls and unravels in the way that it does, in a great suspenseful way, we also understand that each of these suspenseful plot turns has in itself its own emotional stakes. Because of the psychological underpinnings of the characters, because of the emotional stakes of the characters that we have seen as they are situated in the plot, their character dynamics. So it all comes together in this wonderful organic way. It's not like it is a suspense film on the one hand and it's also a human drama on the other hand, and ne'er do the two roads meet. On the contrary, they intertwine quite organically together. And so that, I think, is one of the sources of the great power of this film, The Others. It is a suspenseful film. It is a gothic horror film. It is a ghost story. It is also a human drama, and it's a family drama. It is a story about parents and children, about husbands and wives. It's about classes. It's about the unknown. It's also about regret and guilt and tragedy and reckoning with the past, and how those results of the reckoning and the success and failures of the reckoning really have everything is riding on it, because based on that, we see the rise or fall of the emotional stakes that are at the heart of this film, The Others. So it is I think, a really beautifully constructed film, and it's so effective. It has the chiller gothic horror aspect that I think works so well in the hands of Amenábar and company. And I should point out, too, that I saw this film fairly close to the release round of its original release, and because it had a lot of critical buzz at the time. It was one of those films that seemingly just came out of nowhere, in fact, but just became this huge thing. And around that time too, there were, I think, similarly situated films that were being released in kind of mainstream U.S. audiences that had this undercurrent of the supernatural. And so this was part of that wonderful wave of films. And I think it really stands out as well for a lot of reasons, some of which I've tried to allude to now, but we'll talk about others when we talk about the supplements and the commentary track. But it really has, I think, it lasts so well. And it was made in 2001 or released in 2001, and I'm now revisiting it now, 20 plus years after the fact. And it holds up incredibly well. The way that the set pieces are constructed, the effects. I didn't realize until I saw the supplements here just how many special effects are interwoven into a lot of the shots, but they seem seamless. It's very imperceptible to my eyes, at least, and so they're done very well in it. It really has a sense of a wonderfully a contextualized work that also has the potential of being quite timeless. So I think watching it now, 20 or so years after the fact of its release, I think is a kind of a potential proof of that. But in any event, we have a really brilliantly conceived and constructed work that is also so emotionally rich and quite complex indeed. This is the work which is The Others. The Criterion Collection has released this work, The Others, courtesy of this 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition. So as I mentioned before, 2 discs, one being the 4K UHD disc, which is what I have in the player as we speak, and the other being the Blu-ray disc, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. This is designated at spine number 1195. The work by Amenábar. And I've taken the liberty, if you don't mind, of removing, prior to the start of recording this video, the fold-out insert, and we'll talk a little bit more about its contents later, but one of those contents is notes about the master, which can be found on one of the folded pages. And I quote, "The Others is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. Approved by director Alejandro Amenábar, this new digital master was created from the 35mm original camera negative, which was scanned in 4K resolution by Mercury Films at Cherry Towers in Madrid. The original Dolby Atmos soundtrack was remastered from the magnetic tracks." So, yes, I have seen this film circa the time of its original release, but again, my frame of reference for watching this film is again based on such memories, and I haven't necessarily revisited the film as frequently as I think I should between that time and say now this particular moment of the release of the Criterion Collection. So I admit my frame of reference is quite limited. So, but from a subjective viewpoint, I can say that this, when I saw this in the put it in the player, I found no blemishes or moments of distraction in terms of the presentation and the look and sound. On the contrary, I was quite swept up by it, and I think there is a way in which shadow and darkness seem to be very much emphasized. You know, I remember too when I saw the film maybe early on in sort of early physical media releases in the early 2000s. I seem to recall a kind of I don't know how to explain it, but for lack of a better phrase, a type of flatness that seemed to be on the screen that had the tendency of almost filtering the darkness. I'm talking about my early experiences that had the effect of sort of filtering the darkness, making it a little bit slightly hazier. But that haziness, which is in my mind's eye how I experienced the film before, is gone. And there is a more direct feel between me and my senses and how I experience, say, the darkness and shadows, and then the light as well. So I found that to be very piercing, and I found it to be quite effective indeed. So you'll get no complaints from me when it comes to viewing this film in terms of the 4K presentation here. I've seen the film on the 4K release, or the 4K disc, and I've also seen the film on the Blu-ray disc, and I've enjoyed both experiences in equal measure. And also the sound as well. I mean, the pulsating sound and the soundtrack and the musical score, the Amenábar musical score, is overwhelming, and there are moments of very nuanced delicacy on the one hand, and then there are bursts on the other, and those are you can you can feel the air shake when those happen. I found it to be very effective indeed. So I'm very, very happy and very taken with how this looks and sounds, courtesy of this Criterion release. And then so let us now turn our attention to what can be found in terms of extras in respect of the Criterion release of the others. And I have the 4K disc here. Please recall that we have the 4K disc and then a separate Blu-ray disc, so 2 discs total. The 4K disc is where you will find the film with chapters and then subtitle options for the menu. You'll also find the commentary track. On the Blu-ray disc, you'll find the film, and then you'll find the commentary track availability, plus you'll find the Blu-ray extras, the supplements on the Blu-ray. Those supplements are not to be found on the 4K disc, but we'll talk about those extra supplements when we get to the Blu-ray discussion a little bit later. But before then, let us remember that the film can be found both on the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc, while the Blu-ray disc itself has the supplements and the 4K disc does not. Both of the discs have the film, and they also have the option of the commentary track. So you can listen to the commentary track while watching the film on the 4K disc, or you can listen to the commentary track while watching the film on the Blu-ray disc, your choice. So the commentary track is available on either option. So while I have the 4K disc in the player, let me now turn our attention to the commentary track menu. And it says, this Spanish language commentary track, recorded in 2022 and subtitled in English, features director Alejandro Amenábar. To listen to the commentary while viewing the movie, press the audio key on your remote at any time. So this is a 2022 commentary track from writer-director Amenábar, and it's subtitled in English. So when you watch the film with the commentary track on, for instance, for myself, I don't speak the language, unfortunately, so I have to rely on the subtitling for the commentary track, and those subtitles are in English. So it'll be the subtitling option for the commentary track as one watches the film but listens to the Amenábar commentary track. And so for me, as I watched the film and listened to the commentary track and read the subtitles, I was in awe. Absolutely in awe. I think Amenábar is so well spoken, and you also get a sense of this in the interviews that we find in some of the other supplements. That this is so great. He talks about how this film figures into, say, his filmography or body of work at the time, making reference to other works like Open Your Eyes, etc. And also the way in which he was trying to deal with location shooting and then sets. I mean, we understand it was a combination of the two, and finding the location, eventually relying upon the Channel Islands house here, which has its own set of ambiance and texture. There's also, he mentions here and elsewhere, this idea of how religion is very much seeped into the whole world and atmosphere of the others, and the Catholic upbringing and Catholicism, and how that's linked very, very strongly to notions of responsibility and guilt on the part of our main character, Grace. Speaking of which, he speaks to here in the commentary track about the casting process, leading to the discovery of the performers who would play the children. Wonderful performances. So real and authentic, and there's an innocence that I think is so it's quite heartwarming and charming, and to see the rapport between the siblings, and then to see the rapport between them and, say, the mother, Grace. It's really wonderful. So kudos to the performances, actors, and the casting process here is mentioned, and of course Nicole Kidman. The discussion here about how Nicole Kidman ended up in the role, very interesting, which we'll also get some details in some of the other supplements, and this idea too of the intriguing aspects of the plot or character development, what were some of the contributions of the performers themselves, the focus on, say, this notion of the oversensitivity to light, and also this idea of balance and power balance, the quotations of music, etc. I mean, this is, and the way in which certain shots were achieved, because this is a very physical, it's a physical type of film. It's also very visual film in terms of what information is presented and the way it's presented, and what isn't presented is also, what isn't shown is also very important. But this is a film that's also showing quite a bit, and so there's a lot of craft involved in that. And so these and other reasons, I think, are what make this Amenábar commentary track really wonderful. It's great to see, or it's great to hear this recent or new or fairly new commentary track. It is described as being from 2022. It is the first time for me to listen to this commentary track. It is truly, truly excellent. So kudos to Criterion for being able to include this this commentary track. It makes me wish that it could be done for every single release that they do. But the fact that we get it for this film, The Others, I think is certainly wonderful news indeed. So if you have the opportunity and you're interested to learn more, because there's so much in terms of the craft involved in The Others, I didn't realize just how much. It's really, really quite inspiring. So you get a great sense of this with the Amenábar commentary track. So please check out the film with the commentary track on if you are able to. It's definitely worth a look. And so now let us continue with our discussion of the extras that can be found with this wonderful release from Criterion of the film The Others. And now let us turn to the supplements. So as we mentioned before, this is 2 discs, the 4K UHD disc, which has the film and the commentary track option. And then we have the Blu-ray disc, which has the film and also the commentary track option, but also the Blu-ray supplements. And so I have now the Blu-ray disc in the player, and so as you can see, it has a nice menu, which we had seen in the other disc as well. And sorry if it's difficult to make out because of the lack of focus on my camera here. I apologize. But the first entry is movie, then chapters, and then the commentary track, which is the same commentary track, the 2022 Amenábar commentary track. But then we go to what's next, which is the supplements menu. And we have a lot of supplements. This is really, really great. One of the great strengths of this release, I would say, is the number of supplements, both in terms of quantity, right, number, quantity, of course, but also the quantity of the quality of supplements. This is we're checking off both boxes. The quantity box is checked and the quality box is checked, because these are really high quality supplements here. They're really wonderful. First up is Alejandro Amenábar and Pau Gomez. And I press the button and it says, in this interview produced by the Criterion Collection in 2023, director Alejandro Amenábar talks with film critic Pau Gomez about The Others, including its themes of religious faith and belief in the supernatural. This is approximately 36 minutes, and it's the two of them sitting together in this a really wonderfully decorated room, I must say, and they are talking about aspects and themes of The Others, as well, how this fits into the filmography, the art work of Amenábar, this idea of life and death and a kind of study of death. And there's mentioning too of some of the plot points of, say, photographs of the past photographs alluding to death as well. And so this is part of the ambience, part of the atmosphere that is at the very heart of The Others, and it's a very integral part of the story and plot. And also here, Amenábar is given the opportunity to talk about the genesis of the story, how it came about, and what it meant in terms of how it ended up getting this very, very large in scope, wide in breadth, international acclaim and release and exposure in this way. I mean, it was a kind of big hit. Opened in many markets around the world, including the United States. And then also talking to you about other themes like the role of Nicole Kidman's Grace in terms of her role as the main character of the film, and also mother to the children, and how her character is shown starting very early on, her approach to her role as the mother to these children, how religion, Christianity, Catholicism is very much seemingly integral to that type of outlook, perspective from her, and also how that's linked to Amenábar's own life and own upbringing, and also some comments too about his outlook on religion and God as he sits in the room right now. So it's very There's also talk too about the craft. I should mention here the great work by the cinematographer Javier Irasorobe, and this is a really kind of the look of the film, the ambiance of the film. The fog and the smoke and how that was controlled either on location or applied after the fact in terms of computer effects, etc. It's seamless stuff. And also to making the music, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in with some of the other supplements, but Amenábar is also a musician and also the composer of the music here. So all in all, this is a wonderful documentary, a new Criterion produced documentary for 2023. 36 minutes, robust, it's long in length, and it's wonderful, filled with a lot of information and knowledge. This is the discussion between Alejandro Amenábar and Pau Gomez, approximately 36 minutes. Please check it out if you can. And then we have a supplement which is called A Look Back at the Others. In this 2023 program, director Alejandro Amenábar, along with actors Nicole Kidman and Christopher Eccleston, and producer Fernando Bovira, reflect on the production of The Others. And this is also like it's 2023 program. It's contemporary making of or look back on the filmmaking. And this is great. This is approximately 51 minutes, so close to an hour here, and talking about finding location, the Channel Islands location, and then also how the producers, Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner, became involved in this, and also in terms of this being how it found funding in terms of Miramax's involvement, and also how that, it was in 2001, and also how that ended up enabling the film to get this international exposure, or this acclaim in the U.S. market as well, and also it's interesting to hear a little bit about the process of working with Paula Wagner and Tom Cruise's production sensibilities, etc. And it's also interesting here to note that Amenábar, working on this, everyone, Amenábar and also Christopher Eccleston and Nicole Kidman later in this discussion, really acknowledge just how much of Amenábar's voice is in this work. I mean, it's there were moments where perhaps maybe he was trying to be influenced to make certain concessions to his artistic vision, but that he stood his ground in a manner of speaking. Not wholly, but I don't think this documentary suggests that it was an unhappy experience. On the contrary, I think it was a very artistically fulfilling and very rewarding experience for everyone concerned. But I think one of the great things about it is just another example about how this film was the sort of grounds by which Amenábar was really allowed to work within his artistic voice, and this is his vision in using those terms. And I think that's a really wonderful thing to keep in mind. And also, speaking of the actors, there's talk too here about Christopher Eccleston mentions his production shooting schedule, meeting Nicole Kidman and feeling welcomed. That was an interesting, really lovely anecdote about how he was treated and welcome on the set, because he does say it was working in a set location or set environment, and how Nicole Kidman, who's the star of the film, and he mentions how on a shoot it's the main actor or the star who essentially sets the tone for the working environment, and Nicole Kidman was very professional and always very welcoming, and there was something that she was wearing in terms of a prop or kind of costume jewelry of sorts, which is very also important to the relationship between his character and her character. And so that was also something that he found, I think, very welcoming as well. And also considering the fact that his schedule was relative to the other performers, maybe relatively limited in production time. So, and it was very fascinating. And speaking of Nicole Kidman, there's also great discussion about how this film, how she came to this film around the time she mentions this was around the period of her career, Moulin Rouge and The Others. So this was, as she acknowledges, a really big part of her career, another one of the great stepping stones during this period. I mean, I remember when those two films were kind of around the same time. and Nicole Kidman was just, there's so much wonderful sort of publicity and buzz about these films and the others as well. And what I love too is that they're very different in terms of tone and pace and style, and it just shows a great type of breadth of versatility in performance ability on her part. It's really wonderful to hear her comments about this, and also Amenábar, the casting choices and how Nicole Kidman ended up in the role, and really fascinating as well. And also the working relationship, how she was asking so many important questions and making contributions, but in a way that was also very respectful to the artistic voice and process of Amenábar. So I think there is a sense of it being a really strong, professional, rewarding, working and demanding and very rewarding working professional relationship between and among everyone involved. So this is, and also working with the children, working and having their rapport, because their rapport is so important. So James Bentley and Alekina Mann, how they were discovered for the film and the like, and also some of the other actors who I love, for example, again, as an anecdote, just how Christopher Eccleston was mentioning just how much he admired Eric Sykes, who plays Mr. Tuttle, and so just the admiration for Eric Sykes and the great career of Eric Sykes, and how and what Eric Sykes was doing, because in terms of how he was acting in the role, given certain his condition at the time, and so Amenábar is mentioning about this and other things too. Finola Flanagan as well. What a great performance, Mrs. Mills. What one of the great characters in this film. And also talking to you about the characterization of the house. The house itself is its own character. And also there's a mention too of other films that were released around this time that could be said to have a kind of similar vibe. They essentially went about their business and continued to make this film because it was, at the end of the day, they knew it was a story that they wanted to tell, and it was also this idea of telling the story of this main character, Grace, this woman who is again this very humane tale about her relationships with her family. And the resolutions, if at all possible, in the context of that relationship, or those relationships, the parent-child, mother-daughter, mother-son relationship, etc. Complex character. Grace is such a complex character. Wonderful dynamic character as portrayed by Nicole Kidman. Absolutely splendid. And so, yes, for these and other reasons, this documentary, A Look Back at the Others, it is phenomenal. So please check this out if you can. It's really quite wonderful. A Look Back at the Others, approximately 51 minutes. And then The Making of the Others. This 2002 program features behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with director Alejandro Amenábar, actor Nicole Kidman, cinematographer Javier Aguirre-Salrobe, and other key crew members. And so this is approximately 29 minutes, and this is dated 2002. It is in the Spanish language, so you'll have, for instance, when some of the actors who are being interviewed, and you have their interview excerpts, and if they're speaking in English, you'll have the dubbed Spanish language over that. You can kind of faintly make out what it is they're saying in English. For instance, for my ear, I'm not, unfortunately, I can't understand the Spanish. I'm not fluent in the Spanish language, so my ear will be drawn to the English language if I can hear it. So I can hear very faintly the spoken English of, people being interviewed, like, say, Finola Flanagan or Nicole Kidman, but you'll have the dubbed Spanish language dubbed over it. But that's okay, because you also have the subtitles as well. Again, for the benefit of people like me, like myself, who unfortunately I can't speak Spanish. It's one of the great failings of my life. I really should try to study it more. But in any event, this is a supplement that is that's 29 minutes, and it is covering much of the ground that we saw in some of the other supplements and commentary track about the location, the shooting, the approach to the performances, the casting choices, Nicole Kidman, etc., Finola Flanagan, and others. It's great, absolutely great. Approximately 29 minutes, so please check it out if you can. But that's not all, because then we have something which is called On the Set. This program offers a behind-the-scenes glimpse of director Alejandro Amenábar on the set of the film. This is approximately 4 minutes, and it says on the set, but I think actually it's outside in location. I think that's what it looks like to me, and be specific, it is Amenábar working with a particular scene specifically with Alekina Mann, who plays the young daughter. And he does mention it here elsewhere too about how for him, one of the challenges of working in this film is needing in certain circumstances to work speaking the English language for him, and so he was also learning, as well as he mentions in I think the longer documentary or elsewhere, or the supplement, the commentary track elsewhere. But you can see him engaging with the cast and crew, and specifically Alekina Mann. I think there's a moment here where you see him speaking with her in English, and their conversation, their interaction is in English. So it's a very multi-language set, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So. That and other reasons, and the darkness and the shadow and the nighttime shooting, it's really great indeed. So this is approximately 4 minutes. Next we have art direction. This program features footage of the set design models and costume illustrations with commentary by production designer Benjamin Fernandez. And so this is approximately 2 minutes. It's a kind of audio essay. And so it is a film that is also relying on sets and set construction. So it's really interesting. You see the blueprints, and you see the attention to detail of the decor, etc. Really wonderful stuff. So that's a great 2-minute video essay or with the audio commentary from Fernandez. Really great stuff. Then we have visual effects. This program demonstrates the digital effects applied to several scenes in the others, with commentary by visual effects supervisor Felix Berges. And so this is approximately 7 minutes. It's also a type of audio essay. You see these breakdowns of certain specific shots and the technical terms used to describe these certain shots. This is very eye-opening to me. I'm not an expert. I'm not a technician and not a special effects expert in the slightest when it comes to this stuff. So watching this, you get the technical jargon, I think is really a great learning experience for me. But also, I didn't realize just how many special effects were in some of these shots. And you look at the examples that are shown in this. It's, again, approximately 7 minutes. Wow, I didn't realize it. And then you watch that and you go back and see the film. It's seamless, absolutely seamless. So like how fog and shadow and smoke are interlaid, how the reflection on the glass is superimposed, walking in the outside, and all the things that are involved there. Oh my goodness! And you can't tell. At least my eyes did it. It's truly a feat indeed. And to see that breakdown in these key examples, wonderful learning experience. Then we have recording the soundtrack. Wow, this program presents footage shot during a soundtrack recording session. This is described as being from 2001, 6 minutes, and as I mentioned, Amenábar composed the soundtrack, and we see him at his station trying to, showing his process. Note the poster of the changeling on the wall, which is a great detail. Also note the mouse pad, the Hitchcock film Vertigo with his mouse pad. That is so cool. And then the latter half of this 6-minute supplement is also him in the recording studio, looking on as the one part of the music is being recorded. And there is a moment when he's talking about there's a part where it's a half beat off, and he's trying to get the precise point and trying to convey that to the music supervisor and the conductors, and it's such a great process. And you see him, it's a really detailed point, but it's very, you can see he's very demanding, but he's got a point, and he conveys it in a way that's also very it's demanding, but it's also very calm and very reasonable, and people understand what his point is. So it's a great example of his working craft and his attention to detail. What a great point. So that's recording the soundtrack. Then photographing the dead. As I mentioned, this film features photographs as part of one of its motifs. And this program shows footage from a special photography session for one of the key props in The Others, with commentary by director Alejandro Amenábar. And so, as I mentioned, the photographs and shooting the photographs and the discovery of actual photographs as well, but also recreating some photographs for purposes of the film. It's interesting, I didn't realize, but Amenábar also is featured in some of these photographs. So it's kind of like his own cameo in a manner of speaking. Then we have audition footage. Actors Alekina Mann and James Bentley, who portrayed the children, appear in this recorded audition footage for the roles of Anne and Nicholas, respectively. This is approximately 3 minutes total. You get all of them together in this sort of stage setting. It's really great to see. The rapport was there early on. So it's wonderful. And then we have a deleted scene section, which is totaling approximately 8 minutes. And then we have the trailer as well to round out these wonderful supplements. So wow, so many supplements packed in this. And it's a real, and plus the commentary track. So this is packed. And I am so impressed with this. It makes me so excited to watch this film again and again, and then listening to the commentary track, or then watching some of the supplements and returning to this again as an example. Just realizing just how many special effects shots there are and trying to catch them. I can't. It's that seamless. And then just listening to some of the musical beats and understanding, oh my goodness, Amenábar has composed this pulse pounding and really emotional music, etc., while using his Vertigo mouse pad or something like that. Those little details make the viewing experience of this film, or the revisitation to this film, all the more charming and alluring. So bravo. And that's, I think, what great supplements do. You watch them, it makes you want to watch the film again. So that's certainly the case for me when I watch these supplements. And then to round out our conversation, let us speak to the essay, which can be found in this. Or before we do, I should say this great packaging. This is in a plastic case. So we have the 2 discs stacked, one and then above the other, but not touching, within this kind of Scanova or plastic casing. I like the look of the font and the picture here, which is also, I think, replicated very nicely in this artistic rendering, which is part of the Blu-ray menu. And you look very closely. I mean, this looks to my eye, it looks very photoreal, but I think it's an artistic rendering. At least that's what my eye tells me as I look closely examine. But it looks very photoreal, really wonderful indeed. This is, let's see, the art here. Art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, illustrator Greg Ruth, designer Eric Skillman, art production coordinator William Breeze, art assistant Julie Sussman. And that motif is carried on through to some of the images that you can find in the fold-out. Great artistic motif. And it's slightly off. Excuse me. It's slightly off in terms of focus. If you look carefully, the others, the font, it's slightly off. I'm sorry, my focus on my camera is pretty bad, but I hope you can see it is slightly off in terms of the focus. And indeed, the focus of the others as it appears on the menu is also slightly off. I love that detail. We have the essay, which is Something in This House by Philip Horne. It's a great essay. It's also, I forgot to mention too, some of the great allusions to, say, the great haunted house works. Right? I mentioned the changing a little bit. Henry James is also very important as well. So these points have been touched upon in some of the other supplements, and also in this essay, the great Philip Horne essay, Something in This House. My strong recommendation, as always, is to watch the film first, and then you can read the great essay, Something in This House by Philip Horne. It's definitely worth it. It's another great essay in the Criterion Pantheon. And so I think that is what I can say about my experience with the Criterion release of The Others. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I was pleasantly reminded just how much I was into this film when it was initially released, and now it is back in my life in this way, and I learned so much. Oh, I should mention to Renee Asherton. I'm a big fan of Renee Asherton, the actress Renee Asherton, who plays a really interesting role in this film, and also mentioned in the cast. So. Yes, so anyway, just what a pleasant revisit to this world of The Others. and so much I learned, and so much I know that I will continue to learn as I re-explore and re-examine this great release from the Criterion collection of The Others. So, my dear friends, that's it for now. And so, until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, like the works of Amenábar, like The Others, and films in the Criterion collection and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.